Mike Pompeo would say, this is a live exercise, friends. I still think it's kind of funny. I called Pompeo and Elliot Abrams of famous Elliot Abrams, who he makes the Dirty Tricks crowd look pretty clean. But so anyway, you have Elliot Abrams, Mike Pompeo, and John. I can't believe I can think of his name. The UN dude, John Bolton, who Trump. I don't honestly think Trump got rid of him. I think John Bolton just had enough, and I don't know what he's doing now, but he's probably actually working behind the scenes, brewing up more trouble. To be honest with you, they probably just put him in a more powerful but less visible position. But I called those guys the troika of tyranny, which is they are. One thing I'm not is I'm not a neoconservative. Edward Abbey, a writer, I think he wrote the Monkey Wrench Gang, which I think I read like in high school maybe. Although I'm not positive. That might be Edward Albee. Anyway, Edward Abbey was a writer, I think, in the he might have been a part of the Beat generation, poets and writers like, Ken Kesey, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and Lawrence Ferlinghetti, obviously Allen Ginsberg was with his famous Howl poem. Howl, is an interesting poem. I haven't read it in a while, but I like to take famous songs or poems and then trick them out with my own ideas and language and retain some of their sentences or words or whatever. And I just like to do that because I remember just the rhythm and the cadence, and it was a powerful poem that Ginsberg wrote. It's how can I say this? I mean, the 60s were a nightmare in many ways and really set up the decline and fall of what we're seeing now in this country. And technology has just given it a steroid boost, to finish off the patient. So, but I can't help but be, just because of my age, obviously, I was sort of on the, I was fairly young when the 60s were going down. I mean, I wasn't in that college age, when everybody was gathering in Haight-Ashbury and smoking pot and rebelling and running around naked and all this other stuff like at Woodstock. So, again, I'm not promoting this. I'm not saying we need to go back to that. It was a mess. But the part of that I do miss is, and I caught some of this when I went to school in Northern California at Santa Cruz, is this idea that there were people then, like these writers I mentioned, and of course a lot of other people that, looks like I'm overexposed here, but that, they genuinely, I think, cared about, what people talk about today is, social justice and mercy, and, I think they genuinely saw that, a lot of the wars that the United States entered into were not really actually fighting communism. It was really more of a kind of a power grab in a way, but I don't want to go down that road. But anyway, get back to Edward Abbey, a writer, I think, like I said, during that period, he said, talking about neoconservatives, he said, neoconservatives are neither new nor are they conservative. He said they're as old as Babylon and as wicked as hell. And it's basically true, but neocons fool a lot of, what I would call true conservative, or Christians, because some of the things they say, or even quite a few things they say, are, about, family, flag, and things like that are good values, up to a point. Of course, there's the famous Patrick Henry quote about patriotism is the last refuge of scoundrels, which is true enough in many cases. And I'm seeing that today actually a lot. The true patriots are the people that are saying no to invasions of Venezuela and no to being in Iraq and all these other places, and they're also saying no, we're not going to have Operation Warp Speed. The military put jab a vaccine in our veins. You know, these people that are resisting that are, in my mind, the people that are walking in truth. And of course, the whole thing about freedom of speech and assembly has been basically disassembled with Trump presiding over it. I mean, he's the leader of the country. He could have said to the WHO and Bill Gates and the CDC to take a flying leap. I'm the leader here. I think this thing is basically a hoax. It's another strain of the flu. We go through the flu every year. It's unbelievable. But the mainstream media, which is propaganda, they're really good at what they do. I mean, there's a reason why Hitler got 98% or 99% of the vote. He controlled the media, and the media, again, was not really media. It wasn't news. It was propaganda. But they had Germans fooled for a long time. I mean, obviously, at some point they woke up, and many of them too late. And I think the same thing's going to happen in this country as well. A lot of Trump supporters will wake up and realize they've been had by a man that's, not a constitutional American/patriot. He's not a conservative. He's certainly not a Christian, and he's part of the New World Order apparatus. But boy, if you tell Trump supporters this, they get angry. They're pretty angry people. One thing I'll say about Obama, and I think Obama is going to be the Antichrist. One thing about Obama supporters, they definitely have a testiness about them, but it's not so much like Hitler. He had his jackbooted thugs and the Gestapo and all these people that they would just create mayhem and brawl and the night of the long knives in Germany where they killed like 200 upper level officers, in the middle of the night of the long knives, what a name, huh? But, so neoconservatism, I really say it's just another name for fascism, is nasty, and it's no less nasty than communism, and communism is nasty. I mean, it's just, they're both nasty, they're both authoritarian, and they're both godless. However, fascism usually masquerades as, patriotic and also religious. And that's why a lot of conservative Christians fall for fascists, and I definitely believe Trump is a fascist in the true sense of that word, not in the sense that the liberals are dubbing him a fascist. They don't even understand, that actually Obama is of the same zeitgeist. Obama's not a liberal, Obama's a fascist. So, but there you have it. It's a very strange time to be alive. It's a lonely time for those who are led by the truth, which, Jesus said, I am the way, the life, and the truth. Nobody comes to the Father but through me. I mean, he is the truth, and that's the truth that will get you to heaven if you believe that he rose the dead. If you confess with your mouth and you believe in your heart that he rose from the dead, Romans 10:9-10 says that thou shalt be saved. So, that has to do with salvation, which is the most important thing of all. But also, when you know the truth and you follow the truth, and Richie, I quote him a fair amount because he's like I told my brother, he's got a first-rate mind. He's not inarticulate. He's more articulate than I am by far, but he's not like a real smooth, talker. But he can really lay out ideas, rat-a-tat-tat, But he said, once you see the truth, you can't unsee it, And so, going back to 9/11, I was taken in by the propaganda thing for a short period, but and I didn't have a computer then, and I really didn't have any way of researching this stuff and getting on to people who had done a lot of research and seen videos like architects and engineers from 9/11 Truth. But anyway, but I was taken in for a while, but I asked all these questions on my own, like this doesn't make sense, and this doesn't make sense, and this is weird. And sure enough, as I got to do some research with people that were good, obviously there are a lot of pretenders in that area that actually, in many cases, part of a disinformation campaign by the government to make anybody that resists and calls out 9/11 for the false flag event that it was as like a quack and a kook and a guy that wears, or a person that wears a tinfoil hat. That's part of their psyop. But I just, like I said, I found some great people, and I realized, America had been had, and that's the same thing with this coronavirus. We've been had big time, and I've been writing on Facebook for years that, we're due for another false flag event. Well, this Corona thing, when Trump announced March 13th, declared all 50 states just a federal disaster, that basically opened the floodgates to the WHO and the UN and Billy Gates and all the other crooks and cronies and communists and fascists and FEMA and everybody to basically come in and start doing all this nonsense of masking and distancing and shutting businesses down and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that that set the stage. But anyway, my point is that was the beginning of this big false flag event. So it's a combination of a false flag event and a psychological operation, which is also known as a PSYOP. So one of the big PSYOPs now is that we're all in this together, and so we should all be wearing masks, and we all should be social distancing, and all should be working from home. Don't go out of your house unless you have to. It's still the same old, and it's a PSYOP because now they're casting people like me that don't wear masks. I social distance to a degree when I think about it, just because I don't want to. I mean, there are people that really believe in this, and so it's kind of I don't know, maybe it's a little bit of a throwing a bone in their direction or something. But I'm not like a big, I don't just follow it, faithfully. I don't take a ruler out there and plow them 6 feet apart or anyway. But people like me then we're the anti-Americans. We're the ones that don't go along with the crowd, and we're causing the virus to, continue, or maybe in some cases supposedly getting worse with all this, what I would call bogus and false testing and false data that they're kicking out about this thing. It's just, anyway, it's amazing. I really, when I say this, I mean this with my heart, that 10 years ago, I just didn't think, in terms of the rapture, the world could go on much longer without Jesus coming, vis-a-vis the rapturing event, which I've talked about in previous videos. But here I am, 2020, but we have to be very, very close. So I just say to my brother and other people that know me, I can't believe I'm still here. I can't believe I haven't been raptured out of here yet. So for those who have been born again in Christ and know Jesus as their Lord and Savior and are in His Word, you'll understand what I mean by that. The rapture is definitely going to happen. It hasn't happened yet. The signs of the tribulation period, and the rapture has to happen before the tribulation period. The signs of the tribulation period are casting their shadows into our day in spades. So if the tribulation is right around the corner, then the rapture precedes the tribulation, so that it has to be really an imminent event. Could I be wrong about the timing of this? I mean, can we just go on for a century or a decade or whatever? Yeah, we could, I suppose, but God is not a liar, and the signs right now are all in place for the tribulation period, and like I said, the rapture will precede that. So God's not a liar, and he also doesn't play cat and mouse with his children, his believers, So that's why I don't believe it. We're going to just go on and on and on. I think a lot of people that I know, they think like, well, once the vaccine gets here, things will calm down. A lot of people think the election is going to calm things down. They think that, a lot of people think that this scamdemic, plandemic is totally a politically motivated thing that the Democrats hatched up to, make life hard for Donald Trump, et cetera, et cetera. And how I wish, they were right. I can't tell you how much I don't want to be right when I say that that's really missing the whole point, because we're in a global reset. This is part of biblical prophecy being fulfilled before our very eyes. The New World Order, the last Gentile Empire, led by the Antichrist and false prophet. I mean, all of this is panning out as I've been expecting it to for 34 years, and many others that are into prophecy and are watchmen. They're just watching, like Jesus said, watch. You don't know the day or the hour when I come. So we've been watching for a long time. The New World Order / last Gentile Empire is upon us, and so this this is not as small of an event as just a presidential, political race, and then it's gonna just go away. I mean, that's my take on it. Would I love to, after the election, or I call this election, after it's over, would I love to just see suddenly, like, Tony Fauci or whoever now is a spokesman? I don't follow that very closely. I follow the CDC numbers fairly closely. But, would somebody or the WHO or whatever basically say, hey, pandemic it's faded, it's pretty much gone away, we can return to somewhat of a normal routine. However, we're still very strongly urging you to get this flu vaccine / COVID vaccine. They'll probably actually package them together, or maybe have people take them successively, et cetera, et cetera. Could that happen? I suppose it could. And if it did, I would just be like, wow. I mean, I just missed it. Everybody saw it. I missed it. But let's just stay tuned on this. And if this global reset, New World Order continues the pace like I think it will after the election, and well past the election, then I guess I'm going to get on here and be a little bit like, I told you so. But like I say, I don't have a vested interest in being right, other than I think that I'm rightly dividing the word of truth as it relates to the end times. That obviously matters to me a lot. I don't want to misrepresent God and His Word, and misinterpret it, et cetera, and make claims that aren't true. But my strong hunch is that this thing is not going to go away after the election. But again, I guess I've said it 3 or 4 times already, but I just want to emphasize, I badly want to be wrong, because none of us like the world we're living in right now, right? I mean, even though I'm not masking and I'm moving around and doing different things, whatever, but it's just a weird world, and so many people are hurting, and businesses are not going to come back. I mean, this thing has been a mess for a lot of people, and it breaks my heart. And it also breaks my heart to see these people still, continuing the narrative by wearing their masks and things like this. I mean, every American should have been seen this pretty much in the first 2, 3, 4 weeks, and just say, we're not going to do anything you say you're going to do, because we believe this is propaganda and lies, and we think it's a scam and a hoax, which it is. I mean, if we had a lot of Americans doing that, they couldn't have done what they've done with us. They couldn't have ruined things, which, like I said, will probably never come back. But then I think the Lord's coming soon. So from my perspective, the most important thing is just to get saved. So you get saved and get out of Dodge and get out of what has literally become a living hell on earth. And obviously, tribulation period is going to make this time look really good. And so things are going to wax worse and worse, just like St. Paul said they would. The sun is setting in the South Dakota sky, and Stevie from South Dakota bids you farewell, and thanks for checking in. See you.